Namo Furobosa. Namo Furobosa. Namo Furobosa. Kanji Saibosa, Kanji Saibosa, Kanji Saibosa. Between sunbeam and shadow, the great mystery unfolds. Make life your treasure. Let us celebrate the liturgy of the day. Let us share the peace. May all beings awaken to that peace which is our true home. Let us take refuge. I take refuge in the ground of being, within which I live and move and breathe. Let us make the accord. I take sanctuary in the heart of being, accepting all of my delusions in thought, word, or deed, born of ignorance, hatred, and greed. Let us give thanks. I give thanks for all things, awakening to the interbeing of all nature. May my heart be open and my mind clear, and may all be free from suffering and the causes of suffering, and may all come to know that peace which is born of insight and understanding. Since it is the practice of enlightenment, that practice has no beginning. And since it is enlightenment within the practice, that realization has no end. Welcome everyone to the beginning of the Satori season. We had a very nice Sagaki season and culminated that with some talks on Thanksgiving. And now we begin the sacred Satori season. Satori is a Japanese word that means enlightenment. And in this particular reference, we're talking about the story of Shakyamuni Buddha. So in light of the season, because, even though I am a Buddhist, I was raised Christian, very heavily influenced by the Jewish and Christian tradition, and I have great respect and honor for those traditions. And this time of the year, of course, the big national holiday is Christmas. And I think of Christmas, honestly, as both a religious and a secular holiday, because the religious part of it is for, Catholic, Orthodox, and Protestant Christians to celebrate the birth of Christ. But Santa Claus and the reindeer and all that stuff is also a wonderful part of this season. And it's something that's practiced by people who are not Christian. I remember back when we were in Japan right before Christmas. They're big on Christmas in Japan. Pine trees and decorated Christmas trees and Christmas songs and even little elfin ninja-like Santa Clauses that were all over the sides of the hotel, climbing up and down the building. So I love Christmas too. And so I thought I'd honor all of that by speaking from some passages from both the Jewish and the Christian tradition. So tonight, the first one I want to do is talk about a saying that I love that is found in the Hebrew scriptures. And that saying comes from Psalm 46:10. And it simply, "Be still and know that I am God." If we take those words and we ask ourselves, what's the universal wisdom here? What's the oneness here? Because I believe in the way of oneness, it sort of transcends all of our religious differences and all of our labels. That all of our prayers and devotions are simply, as C.S. Lewis once said, limping metaphors that the sacred must translate. And just as there is not a Buddhist ocean or a Christian sky, likewise, I think that the true essence of oneness is something that transcends all of those differences. And ideally, each of our traditions in the human family point to that transcendent oneness. So what does it mean to be still and know that I am God? Well, as you know, I like to break things down, and I think that's probably the best way to go at this. The first thing that the psalmist is saying is to be still. Now that line is very easy for me to resonate with. And I think for most of us, when we're going through a very difficult time, there is a sense, sometimes of a shock even, you might say, that comes over people. And when it does, what do? They become very still. They become very quiet. And so I think it's natural for us, and even our bodies respond that way, that when we're going through difficult times, we find ourselves in a very quiet or silent, still point. And the practice of meditation that we admonish in the Buddhist tradition, to me, is very much the same. One part of meditation practice is learning to observe the mind and the body and the emotions and realize that they are not who I am. They are not who I am. And in that stillness of abiding, naturally what flows from there is a kind of knowing. So be still and know. And I think of this knowing as not knowledge, but rather like the Greek word gnosis. That it is a knowing that penetrates all the surface stuff, that penetrates through the great mystery of existence. And this knowing ultimately is the realization of the oneness of all life. And when we are still and we enter into that gnosis, that kind of knowing, there is an experience, and it's the I am. Now, the I am statement in the Hebrew tradition is very, very powerful, because it's saying essentially that God is not another being. God is not a super being, but rather God is the very ground of our being. And so when I am still and I enter into that silent illumination, that silent lucidity, I am. And that I am is the inseparable essence of my oneness. And then the psalmist ends it by saying, know that I am God. And the word God, like I say, for a lot of people can be troubling, or it can be something that has a lot of baggage. But I'm not allergic to that word. And I actually think it's a quite beautiful word. And for me, it refers to the same thing that I would talk about as oneness. Or I could talk about it as Buddha nature. But for me, God is oneness. And oneness not in the sense that God is a thing, but that God is oneness. The very process of oneness, the very wonder of oneness is God. And so I love this passage. And for me, that is the essence of my practice, to be still and know that I am God. To be still and know that I am oneness. So I hope that you will, especially if you've been raised in that tradition, that you will find this useful. I think it's really important in an enlightened spiritual practice that we don't reject our roots, because that is artificial and false. But if we see ourselves like a great tree, we're going to have lots of roots, and those roots have fed us. And so I think it's really important at some point in our practice to reconcile with our roots, especially if for some reason we felt we had to get away from them, or we felt that we had a bad experience, or we felt that those traditions really weren't teaching what we consider truth. I think it's really important for us to bring them back in. So I hope that you will join me in that. The moment we receive true and trusting, solid and clear like a diamond, infinite light and life embrace and protect us, liberating us completely. Let us say together the four immeasurable vows. Sentient beings are numberless, I vow to liberate them. Delusions are endless, I vow to end them. The ways of compassion and wisdom are boundless, I vow to embody them. The way is unattainable, I vow to attain it. Let us take the precepts for the community of the Bodhisattva's vow. I allow my true self to manifest in all aspects of life. I take complete responsibility for my own life and all of my actions. I affirm my personal being and acknowledge it as a path to awakening and freedom. I embrace all aspects of my personal being, including my shadow, so that they may be transformed. I affirm an attitude of openness to my true self, even in the midst of suffering. We will now offer incense and recite together the Nembutsu. After that, we will observe some time of silent meditation. knowing that we never truly practice alone or just for our own selves. Let us share the merit of our practice by reciting the Bodhisattva's Gata together. We dedicate this practice to the welfare of all beings throughout space and time. May it be so. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo. Well, that concludes tonight's service. Hope you'll join me next week as we continue our season of Satori. Thank you.